Right. So what's been going on?
Man, so a couple things. Well, what you probably saw was that Summer Strong, which I think you would love.
I know. It's killing
You,
me.
I know. Where were you? What
My
are you doing?
son had his
Oh,
district track meet that
yeah.
same day,
Can't miss.
and it just I talked to Bert a couple weeks before, and I said, "Man, I've never been down there. This is the year I want to go down because after COVID, everyone's going to be
Right.
psyched to be there." And just worked out that way. Bad weekend for me.
Yep. I mean, look, I've missed a lot of them when it's like my son's baseball tournament or I'm holding a fundraiser, this or that. It's
Yeah.
tough, man. When you are a family man, getting away is really tough. I'll
Yeah.
say that. The other new thing is, so I'm here at the high school. This has been a real tricky year, because New Jersey, with our crazy governor, made
Yeah.
so many restrictions within the schools. So with my private gym, kind of doing whatever I want, but at the school, it doesn't work that way. So it's really been tricky with schedule changes. The school is half day. Now the school is full day. This
Oh,
team
yeah.
is training an hour. Now you're training 30 minutes. And man, people are resistant to change. And even being in a school, you're still got to like convince and sell yourself to the kids that this is what they need. And they
Yeah.
will still go to private coaches.
Yeah.
They will still go to private coaches and go elsewhere. And then, so that's been tricky. And then with my own gyms, I've had two facilities for a while. I'm shutting down one of them. Basically, make a long story short, I'm in a partnership and I'm just not a fan of the way the partnership is working. And so, I tried to make it work and make the financial stuff work, which it could. And my partner declined. And so, many years ago, I heard like Gary Vaynerchuk saying, when you go into a partnership, like don't try to negotiate for the best deal, the most money, this and that. And so, I've kind of always been that way anyway, like not trying to get more out of somebody else. Um, I just, I just don't like that feeling of, oh, I've got the upper hand. Like, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in having like a long lasting relationship. And
Yeah.
so I was tempted to like, all right, I know how to do this. I've got the coaches. I'll just open up another spot. And then my wife was like, listen, you're going to open up another gym? She's like, you need, like, your voice needs to go bigger. She's like, you keep opening up these gyms. She's like, you got to expand. You got to start getting back to traveling and doing that. And ironically, not long before that, I had started a new certification. So
Yeah. I saw that.
yeah, basically, in a nutshell, I just looked at it like people don't really know what underground strength is. They still even misspell it like underground, like I'm under the ground.
Right.
Like they don't get it. And so I said, man, I got to like upgrade and update to how things have evolved. Has my training evolved a lot? I don't know about a lot, but it has certainly evolved since we recorded. We do, we do a lot of cleans, a lot of front squats. These are things I didn't really do. A lot more sprinting and jumping.
Yeah.
I'm more focused on speed when I'm training the athletes rather than just fucking killing shit. Does that mean we don't lift heavy? We still lift heavy. I have a couple freshmen that trap bar pulled over 500.
Yeah.
They did 515. They're 15 years old. Great technique, flat back. But I'm always looking at athleticism. And then also for us, quote unquote, older guys, now just, since I last recorded it, I had a shoulder surgery, a knee surgery. So I'm really into the longevity of
Yeah.
training. So when I'm training athletes, I don't look at, hey, what am I going to get out of this kid this year? Even when I was at the college, I looked at like, I need this kid to be healthy for the long term. So when he's done with college wrestling, he's not like a walking train wreck. And I don't think people and coaches really get that. And then the other changes have really been the little nuances, the style of communication. I think I don't know if I was crazy the way I used to be, but I'm just more flexible with a lot of the way I coach. I think part of it is being a dad. We watch our kids grow up, so we see
Yep.
them change. You're a father. Now you realize, hey, man, how would I want my own son or daughter to get trained if I took them somewhere? So that comes into play. And some of the business stuff has certainly changed. So I'm kind of putting it all in there. I don't know if it's going to be some big, I can't honestly keep up with the way you're supposed to market and high end video and all that stuff. And I don't know what sucks people in to things. But what I'm really proud of, Mark, is what we do for athletes and how it has changed their lives in sport and in life, as a whole. And I'm like, man, I need more coaches to get this in their hands. And I honestly, part of me thinks like some coaches don't really want to invest in like a course of learning. They want to watch YouTube and Instagram. They want to do what's convenient. They don't want to be on somebody else's clock, even if they're struggling. They're just gonna, I had a coach tell me, he's like, listen, I don't really watch anything longer than a minute or 90 seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck do you learn?
Yeah.
Like, you can't so I'm looking, you got the bookshelf behind you. What do I only read? Half the page, a minute. It's a minute. It's time is up.
Yeah.
I friggin' immerse myself into shit. And I'm that's what like my mentality of excellence is. I think a lot of coaches think they're good, maybe some think they're great, but I think a lot of coaches actually suck
Yeah.
and they don't see the finer details, or they know how to lift themselves. They could deadlift a lot, this and that, but now how do you coach a kid? How do you
Yeah.
spot them? What happens? Like, why did the kid miss the rep while you were coaching him? You don't have the coach's eye. I saw a mile away that I said go for 8 reps, and after his first rep, I knew he'd be done at 5. But
Yeah.
nope, you saw on the whiteboard 8 reps, and you're going for 8. And then those last 3 reps were shit and dangerous. And so, can I teach that in a day? No. But can I kind of bring them into my world of really this pursuit of excellence in training and coaching? I hope so. It's up to them to want to learn.
Yeah. It's that's really interesting because I went to the same changes a couple years ago, and it was just I first of all I mellowed out considerably. So like the people who were in my gym and then came back like a year or after COVID, they came back. I've mellowed out a lot. Um, First of all, I realized that a lot of the people I work with aren't trying to be Division I athletes. I say it to my people all the time, and it's more of a mantra for me that, hey, we're not training for the Olympics here. So I mellowed out a lot. The thing about how would I want my son to be trained is another big thing. Um, but one of my big pet peeves is we still have a mentality in this country especially at the high school level that just because someone lifted weights in high school, they're qualified to train athletes. And I kind of I kind of got in trouble a little bit because I made a post a couple months back, and it's something I've said for years. It's like, hey, I'm a dummy. You don't want me teaching your kid geometry. I don't want you training my kid to lift weights, because one of the things I deal with on a daily basis is 20, 30, 40-year-old guys who have horrible joint problems and back problems because of stuff they did in shitty weight rooms in high school from
Yep.
their coach, who was just a guy who lifted weights. Well,
Yeah.
it just happened to be that the local high school coach was a geometry teacher. So I had to send him an apology and say, look, I didn't know you were a geometry teacher. It wasn't my intention. I just wanted to put it out there that, it just, my father sold tube benders. That was his business. He had a successful tube bending job. I don't know anything about tube benders, and just because your dad was a football coach doesn't mean you know anything about football or weightlifting. And it's just, I hate the phrase stay in your lane, but that's kind of what we need to do for the sake of the kids is
If
just
you
figure
don't
out
want
what we're good at.
if you don't want to stay in your lane, then you better become great. If you want to be the guy that's running the weight room, then you better do some heavy duty research. And
Yeah.
here's the thing is like there's so much information out there. You can become a great coach without ever buying anything. You could watch and learn everything from all the greats, all the free stuff, and become you can become very good. You can become great. But there's so much information out there, but people are still doing shit wrong.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And look, I work at a high school. I see some of the coaches lifting, and I see bad technique. And some of them, went to colleges with strength coaches, this and that, and it's not as easy as people think. And I think it's because they either don't want to learn or they complicate what does not need to be complicated. So
Yes.
I could see, like, when kids walk into the room, I don't need to do an assessment. I could look at your physique and know what you're going to be able to do, and I could start putting it together in my head from there. I
Yeah.
could look at the way your body looks. Are you muscular? Are you fat? Are you weak?
Yeah.
Are you a heavier guy? Okay, you're probably not going to be able to do pull-ups, and you're going to struggle on some of these body weight exercises. Are you very skinny? Are your shoulders slouched? Are you walking and I see your feet are duck-footed, naturally? Like, I take all that stuff, into account immediately, and the programming begins in my head. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I ain't saying I'm great. Every day I'm always like, damn, I got to get better.
Yeah.
And sometimes getting better is like, how do I communicate better with these kids? How do I now we're training an hour. We were training an hour. Now we're training 30 minutes. How do I now program optimally for them? Let me get
Yeah.
these lights to work here. How do I get them to program optimally so that these 30 minutes feel like they're working,
Yeah.
And so, man, it has been tricky at the high school. Next year will be even trickier when I'm back to maybe um, no limitations on numbers, and I'm back to fucking 45 to 75 kids in a weight room. Dude,
Yeah.
one guy. And
Yeah.
Buddy Morris said when he was at the Cleveland Browns, he's like, Zach, you know what the hardest thing I did when I was there? Turn on the lights.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it didn't really hit me until, I've coached at Lehigh and Rutgers. You have such athletic kids. You teach them, boom, it's like so easy for them. You're warming them up. They're doing backflips during the warm up. Like, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now you get to a high school, you don't have the equipment you need. The equipment's beat up. You're coming in to a place where kids have very poor habits. They don't put their weights away. They don't clamp up the weights. They don't even know, they weren't taught how to do a body weight squat, but they're still
Yeah.
squatting 3 plates,
Yeah.
1/3 of the way down, and it's all you. And so, like, it was a lot. It's actually, coaching at the high school is way more challenging than at the college level. Way more.
Well, what's interesting is, for these kids, your biggest street cred thing is probably looking at your Instagram followers. That's what they look
Yeah.
at and go, "Oh,
I
this
heard
guy
them
must."
mentioning it once in the hallway.
Yeah. Well, in your high school, here you have this guy who is the guy other people are probably going to send their kids to train.
Yeah.
But even you are still dealing with these,
Yeah.
high priced speed
Dude,
training
they go
centers
to
and
private coaches still.
yeah.
And then when they come here, the kids that were going to private coaches, when we're dumbbell benching, their head is off the bench, their elbows are
Yeah.
flaring.
Yeah.
I said, fire your coach, fire your
Yeah.
private coach. Put your head down. We're going palms in. You're a baseball player. I don't need your arms out here. Your arms are out. You're playing baseball year round. Get your palms in.
Yeah.
Like, but no, I'm going to my private coach. I'm special. And
Yeah.
guess what? As a private coach myself, Mark, I never tell kids to come to me first. I say, you
Right.
train with the team, then you tell me what you did, then we work around it. I've been doing that
Yes.
since I've opened up my facility. I was doing that out of my garage when I
Yep.
trained the football players who would lift after school with the high school. Then they'd go home, get a protein shake, then they'd come to the garage.
Yes.
And so I never tell kids, don't go to private. But I told these kids, I go, this is the most divided team I've ever worked with. You show up late, you want to leave early, you'll want to go to private coaches. And I told them, I was like, problem is, there's no threat here. There's nobody threatening to take your spot. So you
Yeah.
think you're the best when you're not even that damn good.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we were 500 last year. And I said, the reason is because you guys are me, not we, when it needs
Yeah.
to be we, not me. You're all about yourself. I go, last time I checked, this is a team sport, and you're only as good as the guy next to you and in front of you and on the side of you.
Yeah.
So I had a real heart to heart with them 2 weeks ago, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. And this year's weird. Like, I always communicate with the teachers and the coaches I work with. I'm like, man, like, you can't even like reprimand a kid, because why is he late? Is he late because his mom has to leave working from home? She's on a call. It's not his fault. It's not the mom's fault. So you can't even reprimand the kid. Or, you know, this kid's ride showed up late. He had a ride, but now that ride showed up late. It's like such a mess. And then the other thing is, what I try to do is every school marking period, I switch the schedule. So guess what? You're not always right after school.
Yeah.
You're not always after school. Oh no, we don't. We always lift it after school. Too fucking bad. You don't own this weight room. I got a million other kids I got to train. This marking period, you'll be first. Next marking period, you're in the second group. You don't want to come back? Why? Like, why are you so special that you can't go home and eat and come back?
Yeah.
And dude, that's where things, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, whatever it is, once you start thinking you're special, it's over. And
Yeah.
and I say the same stuff to my kid, my own two kids. My daughter's a really hard worker, plays tennis. She goes
Yeah.
to the gym. She's got like a wrist problem, so she's been laying off tennis for a bit, but she trains with that wrist brace on. She'll use one arm. My son has not been showing up, and it's always like silly excuses. And I go, dude, I ain't forcing you to come here, but if you're sitting the bench because you're not hitting good and you're not running fast enough and you get forced out at first, this is your answer
Yeah.
right here. And it's, if you don't want to come, that's fine. And if you don't want to listen to me, you could go to any of these other gyms around here. I'll tell them, like, go to another
Yeah.
gym. We actually lost kids when this new gym opened up near me, like a sport facility.
Mhm.
And then they came back, and I heard a kid, like, he was like doing stuff. They were doing pull aparts. He's like, going to that place was the worst decision of my life. And so I overheard them. I won't talk down, but I listen. And they say, like, kid came from that gym. They're like, yeah, we don't do push-ups that way. We don't do push-ups with our head down and our stomach sagging. And Zach doesn't let us do it wrong. And so I realize, like, guys like us we've built our own shit. We have a different pride
Yeah.
versus if you and me were working at a big facility that the guy has, he's a multi-millionaire. He's like, yeah, I got side money. Let me buy this building, put in a bunch of turf and hire guys. Now we're just trying to make money by getting kids to do privates. First of all, I took pride no matter where I worked. Why? That was just taught to me in wrestling. Like, you got a job, do your fucking job, be great at it. But I don't think that's just not normal.
Yeah, we've got one of those facilities just down the road from us, and we were looking at it the other day because every once in a while we'll get a kid from there, and it's all the same stuff. It's $400 a month. Here's your paper. Go do your program. We started looking at their coaching staff, and look, you and I have been in this business for a long time, and I've been in Ohio forever. I don't know who any of these people are. Never heard of them, never seen them. They're in the strength and conditioning world. I've never run into at a clinic. I've never run into at a competition at another gym. I've never heard of these people. And we were just, me and my the guy who works for me were just looking at this like, man, who are these people? And you look at them, they're all out of shape or they're real weak looking. It's just like, I don't know where they're getting people from, but it's all the same stuff you're saying. So they'll come back and, I had one kid who told me he never broke a sweat the whole time he was there. And I'm like, and I'm glad you said that about training kids earlier. One of the things I have changed in my program with kids is it's always been a struggle with fighting with the coach. The coach wants them there, we want them here. So I just started saying, hey, we're going to do all sorts of shit that they're not going to do at
Yes.
whatever high school you go to. So we're going to do
Supplement.
sandbag lifts, and we're going to do Atlas stone lifts, and we're going to do conditioning, and we're going to do kettlebell stuff, and make sure our body weight workouts are on point, and then we're going to do a lot of bodybuilding stuff afterwards, because everybody should want to be jacked, and
Yeah.
you get that.
Supplement
Yeah,
what is not getting done. You fill in the gaps. And look,
exactly.
you were talking about not breaking a sweat. I know like Twitter is like a lot of like polarizing stuff. There's a lot of good conversation on there with strength coaches, but sometimes, you know, they'll make comments, and I get it. It's like on an extreme end of like, hey, if your program's only goal is to get them sweating and exhausted, what are you doing? But look, there needs to be an element of work and sweat,
Yes.
and it can't just be all of this perfectly organized stuff. Like outside of this bubble, outside of our weight room, we have a hill. It's probably like 150 feet up, something like that. It's not a super steep hill, but it's a nice incline.
Yeah.
Somebody said, do you time them? Like if you're not timing them, and then, like timing their rest periods, is it really sprinting? And I said, no, we don't time them. And I said, and here's the reason why. Number one, I'm training another group. So I just send them out and tell them, I go, you're going to run hills as many as you think it takes to win. You want to do 2? You want to do 0? You want to do 10? But if you coast at the end or you don't go all out, I'm leaving that up to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, sports are imperfect. There's no perfect rest period. If you're a football player, you might play both ways, and they're not like, Mark, you didn't rest 3 minutes.
Right.
Your ATP is not restored, yada yada. And so we work. They sprint up, they walk down. And
Yeah.
sometimes it ain't perfect. And guess what? Sometimes it's slippery out there and they fall because it rained the day before. That's right. That shit happens in sports. What do you do when you
Yeah.
fall? Lay down and don't finish the sprint? You fucking run. And so the imperfections are important in this kind of overall program design because they mirror sports, they mirror life, they have an impact on the psychology of the athlete. They do build grit and toughness. Okay. And a lot of kids are not tough, and we need to
Yeah.
be tough. If you're going to play a combative sport, lacrosse, football, wrestling, even our basketball players, it's a very physical sport. We need to be tough. So nothing I do is perfect, perfectly organized, not because I'm not trying to be, but because I know it will never be perfect,
Yeah.
no matter how perfect I want it to be. And also my groups. So, for example, I've been teaching the clean the past 2 weeks. Today's Wednesday. You may have missed the last 3 workouts. Okay. You may have front squatted for a week or two, but now what do? I got 5 of you who haven't cleaned before, and I got 40 who have, or maybe it's half and half. Guess what? Here's how you do the clean.
Yep.
Start figuring the shit out.
Yep.
I'm not gonna everybody position 1, position 2. I like that, but I don't even have the time for it. I have fucking 30 minutes now to train them. So our warm up is like, you're going to do 5 hang cleans with the bar. You're going to do 5 front squats, 5 push-ups, 5 pull-ups. Do that for 2 sets. Bring it in. Here's what we got next. Boom. 2 hang cleans with weight, 4 front squats, any kind of jump you want. Jump the hurdles, jump over the benches, jump with kettlebells. Get back into the rotation. Boom. Now we got to work. Because if you're trying to make technique perfect, and that's what I also love to be transparent about. If you want it to be perfect, you're full of shit. Yesterday at my gym, we were doing cleans as well. You usually do cleans on the second workout of the week. And, I'm teaching middle school kids cleans, and it looks like hell. But guess what? I remember Dave Tate saying, he's like, you go from like shit to suck to
Yeah.
crap to good. So I used to never teach front squats and cleans because I hated how it looked, and I hated hearing them complain about their wrists. And then I realized it's my fault for not wanting to kind of break through the discomfort that they have and
Yeah.
expecting everything to look great. Yeah, it's easier to do a back squat. There's still a lot of intricacies and complicated things to a back squat, but a front squat is less comfortable. But then it's like after the second or third set, they're doing great.
Yeah.
They're actually doing great. And it's because I no longer feed into this is uncomfortable. I can't do this. I say, guys, I'm 45. I didn't start front squat until 35.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not, they say I'm not flexible, blah, blah. I go, dude, nobody's tighter than me, and I
Yep.
think about that when you said, hey, I've been coaching for a long time. Think about this when there's like a young coach and no, look, you got to be, you're young. We're all young. But what we're saying is, I have seen and squatted more years than you've actually been alive. I started lifting in 89. You probably started lifting a little bit before that.
87. I'm 2 years older than you.
33, I don't know what's that, 33 years.
Yep.
So that means you've been squatting. And how many squats have you seen
Yep.
with different body types? And now you've developed the coach's eye that can never be, I try to write about it, I try to talk about it, but you got to live, you got to go through it. Joe Ken even said, he's like, dude, the coaches today, there's so many assistant coaches at the Division I level on the floor that like they're working like 2 or 4 platforms.
Yeah.
He's like, I would fucking work 16 platforms
Yeah.
with maybe 1 GA.
Yeah.
And so learning how to coach like that, how to command the room, how to have multiple things going on. Oh, you're injured. Oh, your ankle is, you busted up your ankle yesterday. Here's what you're doing. Your back has been bothering you. This is the squat variation we're doing for you. People like, they could maybe recite Zatsiorsky's, principles and this or that. But dude, let me see you coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see
And
you coach.
and a lot of it comes down to, like you talked about earlier, figure it out on your own. Man, this wasn't even a profession when we were in high school. There was no strength coaches. There was no private coaches. I mean, that maybe some power lifter down the street was helping kids in his garage. But I mean,
Yep.
I can remember getting done with football, and then it was, man, I'm going to hop on my bike and I'm going to ride my bike 6 miles to the YMCA, because I knew there was 3 guys who ended up going to the NFL, and they were down there in high school just training. Raymond Harris was one of them who played for the Buckeyes, and they're down there training. I just want to be around those guys. So I just watched them and did what they did,
Right.
figure that
There
shit
were
out.
there were mentors. Now you can't get mentored because when you're training at a gym, you have your AirPods in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I can't help you.
Yep.
I can't help you. Which when I first got here, kids were coming in with AirPods. I was like, dude, I can't fucking coach you with that.
Yeah.
Like, phones, get your phones out of this weight room, come in here and be coachable. And so I give out T-shirts, and on the back it says effort, attitude, toughness. And I got that from Jim Kiersey, who's at Kennesaw State. He was at the Citadel before that. And then I break it down for the kids. How do you earn this shirt? Effort. I go, that's easy. I go, I could shut off the music and look, and if I see your lips flapping or I see you banging weights, I go, it's easy. I go, but if a coach comes and watches you play lacrosse, football, watches you wrestle, they see your talent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily know your work ethic.
Right.
I go, this weight room, I could see who's a worker. Attitude. Can I coach you? Or when I try to coach you, do you have 10 excuses for why you didn't do this, can't do this? I go, if you don't want to learn, if you're not coachable, I can't help you. So your attitude needs to be great. And I said, toughness. I go, you got to be able to show up when the chips are down. Oh, you go to a private coach? Can you still show up? That's part of being tough. You're tired. You broke your arm. All of these things when the chips are down. Do you show up when the chips are not in your favor? And I said, if you meet this criteria, you've earned a shirt. I ain't giving it to you. You can't buy it. You can't say I want it. Prove it through your actions. And so the shirt, it's interesting how I have to do these things to get the kids to show up and get them to believe in the program. And look, here I am still struggling. There's still kids who are on and off. And, the bottom line is like some kids don't want it. They do not care if they're good versus great. And one of the coaches here was telling me, because there's a lot of private coaches in here. He's like, man, kids that used to come from this guy or that guy, they used to be so good. He's like, I think this coach got lazy. I go, no, no, no. I go, that coach could still be putting in all his heart and soul, but some of these kids don't do the work. So,
Yeah.
like, I train kids who keep skipping breakfast for a year,
Yeah.
and the very thing holding them back is their lack of strength and size, and they still won't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
So guess what? That ain't my fucking fault, because I
Yeah.
told these kids, this is how we eat. This is what you got to do. And so let's say let's say there's a group of kids coming from your gym and that are not following through, but you're working with them and trying to get them better. But the reason why there's such slow or minimal progress is they don't eat enough. They're not obsessed with it just yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're not obsessed, if that mind muscle connection ain't there, it ain't happening. And think about, like, you rode your bike to the gym. My buddy commented on, I posted something, and we trained. I've known him. He went to school with my younger brother, so I've known him since he was like 5 or 6. We trained together when I was a teenager through my early 20s. But he used to run to the gym, which I think was 2 miles each way. Then he'd run back. When's the last time a kid ran 2 miles just for the sake of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't. And Louis Simmons always goes, "Hey, kids have no heroes." You commented on that, like the '80s. You saw
Yeah.
Sly and Arnold, and
Yep.
then any of their co-stars, they were jacked.
Yep.
And so when you watch those movies, you wanted to lift weights.
Yeah. 100%.
Do
There's
you want to
just,
lift weights now? Like seeing, all right, Wolverine is ripped, but like I don't want
yeah.
to lift weights. I seeing Robert Downey Jr. He don't make me want to lift weights. What
Right.
about none of these guys make me want to lift weights.
Mm-mm. No. The only guy you have anymore is The Rock,
The
and
Rock,
that's it. But everyone looked like, all the guys looked like that or better when we were
yeah,
watching. We were
man.
kids coming up. I saw those
I would
guys are
like
all
to
the
see more.
wrestlers.
Oh, dude, there's a Instagram called like, did you see it? It's like the wrestlers of it's from the '80s, and
Yeah, I follow a lot.
those guys were all like powerlifters. They were
Yeah.
power bodybuilders. Wrestler, man.
Remember Doug Furnace? Doug Furnace was,
Oh
900
yeah,
pound
dude. Well,
squatter.
that was who do you call it?
Ed
I don't
Cohen's
know.
partner.
Ed Cohn's partner, Marty Gallagher, always speaks about him. Dude would do
Mhm.
like a standing backflip. Guy was like 260, ripped.
Yeah, and there was just so many images of that in the 80s that we just all wanted to be jacked. Now kids, I just had a conversation with a kid today. He's trying to lose weight and he's a jujitsu guy. And I said, he's 17. I said, why don't you just get jacked and wrestle bigger guys? He's like, I'm not about that. I want to be light. I want to be the opposite of big. And I was just like, oh, man, you're not even speaking my language. I can't figure it out. I stepped away from training kids for a while. Because after 2008, I saw like a drop off, a huge drop off in attitude and work ethic. And I don't know what that was, but I started coming back to it this year. And I've got a group that comes in at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
5 a.m. These kids come in on their own to train. And it was just like, when they walk in, my smile can't be any bigger because it's like, wow, these are
High
like
school kids at 5 a.m.
high school kids at 5 a.m. And the group is growing, which is it's great, man. I just can't believe it.
That's
And
weird, man. We at my first location, we had an adult who would come in at 6 a.m. and she would train like strength and conditioning style. Then another adult came, another adult. Then some of our athletes found out about it, and some of them started lifting at 6 a.m. I was like, whoa, man, that's weird. And I remember, my coach was like, dude, he's like, it's awesome. We got some of the adults in, and then we had like 3 or 4 of the athletes coming in for a 6 a.m. lift. They liked it. They liked lifting before school. And I was like, that
yeah,
sounds early, because they would have had to like wake up at 5:15, leave the house at like 5:40, maybe even 5:30 to get there.
Yeah, it's weird. I think we've got 4 right now. It started off with 2. Actually, it started off with my son, and then it was like 2 of his buddies, and it just
What
start.
grade's your son in this year?
He's a sophomore.
Oh, cool, man. So, dude, I've always said there's such a big transition and jump that these kids make going into their junior and senior year, like emotionally, physically, they just start
Yeah,
taking to the
yeah,
training.
yeah. It's he he was the experiment. So he's my only son, and I started him lifting, like he was lifting medicine balls when he was still in diapers, lifting them from the floor to the
Yep.
couch. And I got him in gymnastics, and it was always like, hey, do you want to do gymnastics? Yeah, sure. It was never like, you have to go do this.
Sure, you get
And
them young.
yeah, and he just he likes training, and he likes lifting, and it's paid off. And I think some of these other parents will ask me, what are you doing with him? And it's just like, it's not what I'm doing with him now, it's what I've done with him his whole life.
You stayed the course. And
Yeah,
so my son will be 13 in 3 weeks. My daughter will turn 15 the end of August. When we moved to where we live now, 11 years, we have a high ceiling garage. So I hung up a pair of rings and a climbing rope. So
yeah,
when they were babies, a year and a half and 3, what did they see me doing?
yeah,
Swinging kettlebells, farmer walk, sprinting up and down the street.
yeah,
So we had a gymnastics mat. We'd put it on the front lawn. Daddy would be in and out of the garage training. And then they would be doing whatever they did on that
yeah.
mat. They would try standing on their head. They would try doing push ups. It looked like they were humping the ground, but they thought, oh, this is normal.
Yep.
You're supposed to do that. And so my daughter loves going to the gym. I actually don't really coach her too much. She gets out a marker, she puts stuff down on the whiteboard, but it's like an athletic workout. She's
Yeah,
jumping on and off the boxes. She pulls the sled. We just got the new Sorinex rack. She does the jammer
yeah,
arms. She does different abs and med ball stuff. So she's learning how to do, she's kind of learning what it feels like, which I think is very important. It's also helpful as a dad when you're not hovering over your kid.
yeah,
My son, you know, he'll come in, I can't tell him what to do. So what I do is I go to a couple kids and I say, hey man, grab Ethan's ankles, get him to work in with you on hand walking. Hey, get Ethan to push a sled with you, get him to race against you. So they kind of hear, I give him a little,
yeah,
then they get him involved. Or the kids are doing cleans. He's a baseball player. Technically, we don't want a baseball player doing cleans, getting all that stuff. But I'm like, man, what if we could learn this shit early
yeah,
and front
yeah,
squat and get your hips more mobile? So now, he really enjoys it when it's crowded and it's kind of like a weightlifting party and there's kids they get
yeah,
talked to. And, that's important. As you probably recall, Mark, in our younger years, that was the fun part of lifting is like you would
yeah,
lift hard and then you could talk to guys in between sets, but you didn't screw around. There was
yeah,
joking around, but you were back in it. And
yeah,
oh, what are you doing today? You're doing legs? Can I work in with you? I'm doing legs today. That's how things were. Today, everybody's on their own in the gym with their
yeah,
own headphones and all that. And so, as much as I love that raw environment, it would be very difficult to open up, a quote unquote hardcore gym today. There is a place near me that's a 24-hour gym and they play music and it seems like they got a good thing going on, like powerlifting equipment. They got platforms and everything, but it'll still never be like the 80s and early 90s.
right.
And I've had this exchange with Ivan from Ivanko,
Yeah,
and he was saying the same thing. He's like, man, those 80s and even the 70s when like skateboarding was big and surfing, he's like, they were all rebels. And that's
yeah,
how the early gym owners and lifters were. There were these kind of like no rules kind of guys. He's like, then the late 90s came and then, things get commercialized.
yeah, yeah.
And sure, that helps with business. People bigger things, buy more things, but the purity is certainly missing. So I try to keep that alive.
I think it's super important. There's so much of an attitude that comes out of those places. You know, when I would go to the YMCA and I was going there after football practice and everything, like you talked about, you're training with these guys and they're treating you like an adult. They're not treating you like a 15-year-old kid. They're talking to you and trying to
Yeah.
help you. And as long as you
Yes.
weren't a dickhead or acting like a 15-year-old, they were always more than
You
willing to
were.
give you a spot or help you
You
out.
earned their respect. They
Yeah.
wanted to help you because they were probably helped by their uncle or some guy
Yeah.
up the street in his garage, like you said. And now they wanted to share stuff because it feels good. Hey,
Yeah.
kid. Hey, kid. Why are your hands so close on the bench?
Yeah.
Bring them out an inch. Hey,
Yep.
kid, your feet are too close on the squat. You're not going all the way down. Put your feet an inch wider, get lower.
Yep.
Like these little nuances. Oh, you want big arms? You got to do chins and dips, man. You got to
And
do chins and dips.
and legit, that was the only way we could learn stuff. There was no internet, so the only way you learn stuff is from these old timers
Or you read
who
a couple
were
of,
willing to help.
or you read a couple of old books, which
Arnold's
yeah,
encyclopedia, wasn't
which
it
was like
wasn't
it was good, but one thing I realized is like, man, I didn't never learned like this aggressive style of training, like lift heavy, lift fast. So I was around a lot of bodybuilders.
yeah,
So I'm always
yeah,
like, man, dude, I wish I was around guys that really kind of had this athletic background. Like you said, there were strength coaches in the NFL in the 80s. A lot of times they were like world record power lifters.
right,
Same
right.
thing in the college setting. So those you needed to be lucky to be in those
Yep.
areas. I think Ohio has always been known as a hub of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, it's weird. That's why the Arnold's in the Columbus, the Arnold Classics down there. That and there's West Side, and you've got Judd Logan at Ashland, and uh, Shane
Clinic,
Sweat.
a lot of
Yeah,
clinics.
a
I
lot of
remember
clinics.
exchanging email with Dr. Ken Leisner,
Yeah,
early 2000s, and he was going out to speak at a clinic at Bowling Green State. Is that or
yeah. It's
Bowling Green University? That's Ohio,
like
right?
an hour. Yeah, about an hour from me. Yeah,
So he was going out there, and the way they were paying him was like he loves ice cream, so they were giving him like a bunch of like gallon drums of ice cream. He was going to put it in the back of his truck and then drive back. So it was the winter time, so he didn't have to like worry about anything melting. So somebody had a connection with like I don't know if there's like a famous ice cream place in that area, but they were connected with it, and that's how
yeah.
they paid him with a truck of ice cream.
Man, you gotta really like ice cream, man.
Yeah.
It's
So I thought
the
it was
haul.
really, also, like Dr. Ken too. I always remember his last article in Iron Mind or
Yeah,
Milo, not
Milo.
Milo.
Yeah,
And he said, "This is my last article." He goes, "I don't know how much longer I can keep writing about hard work and the basics and
yeah,
trying to put it a different way." He's like, "I don't even know if I want to, try to tell people a different way to do it. This is what it takes, hard work on the basics." And he didn't
if
want to veer from what was in his heart.
I don't read, I can't get through an article on the internet anymore. Like, if I go to some, guy who's got some new training program, because you look at it and you go, fuck. First of all, I've read this over the years 3 different times and rehashed 3 different ways. But what
Correct.
I'm reading now is, um, I'm reading these books from like the 1920s, like, Farmer Burns
Yeah.
and Hackenschmidt and stuff. And it's like, Jesus Christ, these guys had 0 Instagram followers, but they know all the same shit we know today.
Those guys
And it's,
too they were so damn strong. The way they were built. I love the
yeah,
simplicity of how they ate. You read George Hackenschmidt's The Way to Live. He talks about
yeah,
the deep breathing,
yep,
the stretching exercises, talks about working around his injuries.
yeah,
Just really interesting. And they were kind of well rounded. They were
yep,
always like weightlifting and then something else, whether it
yeah,
was philosophy, history, mathematics, writing. It
yep,
was really interesting how they had a balance, so to speak.
yeah. And they were all athletes and they're
Oh yeah,
all well written, the
very
Hackenschmidt book.
well written,
Yeah, it's
very
it's
intelligent.
it's all there. There's nothing new. And Dr. Ken was right. I mean, there's a benefit, especially to young kids, to just busting your ass and putting in the work, and
Yeah.
everything's going to work for you. You know, if you have a guy who's been in the game helping you for a length of time, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're going to do a 5-3-1 or conjugate or what, it all just works. If you just put the
Dude,
time and effort in for a decade, you're going to be fine.
you could even listen to guys that have been in the military for a while. They talk about brilliance with the basics and that
Yeah.
you must always be able to fall back to them. And look, that stuff is always what's going to work. Even in jujitsu, like what you're learning as a white belt, right? You're learning the triangle, you're
Yeah.
learning the kimura. We see that in the UFC.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm just refining my triangle choke from all these
Yep.
different positions. And I'm now my triangle is just like infinitely better than it was when I was a white belt.
Yeah.
And so that's how training is. You're adjusting that squat position and squat technique.
Yeah.
Even in wrestling, I remember, looking back, Iowa was winning national titles with a snap down, a blast double. They were doing something called like a cement job, which is when you like grab the chin and shoot behind the arm, get a tight half. And I remember you could teach it to kids at the recreation level, but then they're like, yeah, this doesn't work at the high school. I'm like, well, why are guys winning, NCAA
Right.
titles doing it? They
Yeah.
do it better. They do it
Yeah.
with more intensity, more ferocity, more perfection.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I've been in jujitsu now. I'm a blue belt, so I've been in there for about 3 years. But the most important thing my instructor taught me, and he's a buddy of mine, so we talk all the time. But when I first started, he said, "Look, learn an arm lock, learn a couple chokes, learn a guard pass, learn a takedown, and then perfect them. You don't need to have." So that's what I do, man. I've got like 6 moves that I go
Yeah.
to every single time, and I just try to make them as perfect as possible. And it
Well,
goes for all this stuff. I talked to my son, and he played football. He's been playing football for a while, and I said, I'm watching his team play, and they're doing all these crazy plays, and I'm like, why not get 5 plays and just run the shit out of them and perfect them, instead of trying to do all these plays and half the kids can't remember what they're supposed to be doing that play, and there's all these moving parts. Just perfect the basics.
man, I think you mentioned in jujitsu. Remember the early days, Hicks and Gracie? Remember the documentary Choke?
Oh, I love that movie. Yeah.
Right. He won everything with a arm lock or a rear naked choke.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep.
And I had a friend that trained under him in the 90s, early 90s. It may have even been late 80s because he was out there and he was training Woody Harrelson for White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah.
And he said when he started training jujitsu with Hickson, he goes, we didn't spar for 6 months. He's like, we
Yeah.
had to learn X number of moves. Then we had to learn the defense, certain defenses to it, and how to escape those moves. He's like, and we actually drilled more than we sparred.
Yeah.
He's like, because sparring would beat up the body.
Yeah.
So just interesting hearing, like, whether it's football, jujitsu, military, it's just this return to the brilliance with the basics.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go, when we're done here, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to pull a sled for a half hour. I mean,
That's beautiful.
not super fancy, right? But it'll do the job.
That's how I helped a guy get ready for a bear hunt. He had
Yeah.
torn his bicep. He was going out to Alaska. He's like, man, I can't really do much. I was like, dude, go get a tire, drill an eye bolt through it, then go put a belt around your waist and just start walking that thing
Yeah.
forwards, backwards a little bit, and keep building up. Your legs will be ready for a bear hunt in
Yeah.
Alaska. And that's what he
Yeah.
started doing. He started working up to like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Oh,
the
did you see
basics.
this? Well, I was gonna say, Mark, did you see something posted? You mentioned you're a blue belt. I think it's Michigan. I don't know if it was state
Yes.
police. What
Yep.
they have to get their blue belt in jujitsu.
Yeah. It's
Was
been
it police?
proposed that
Was it state police? I can't remember what it.
the guy who was telling me about it is a cop, local cop
Oh,
here.
you
And he just
posted
said
it, right? You
police
posted
in
it.
general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's be a blue belt. I mean,
How great is that?
it's pretty awesome. I hope that they actually have, rigor to the program. I don't know how they're gonna pay for it or who's going to be instructing it. But
Right,
hey,
right. I think
anytime,
about that too. It would have to be fit into their schedule.
yeah,
Um, you know, I don't know if you could mandate this training out, but then the other thing I was thinking of is sometimes I see cops and I'm like, there's no way that guy could chase anybody.
no,
He's
no.
fat as all hell.
And the
Or
whole
he
problem
eats. Yeah,
with the whole George Floyd thing and everything, as a guy who's, and I'm sure you being a grappler too, you look at that and go, that's not how I would ever have done that. There's like a million different ways to hold somebody down.
right.
There's just a million better ways, let alone something that's going to
And
kill them,
I think that's what pushed this is they
Yes.
realized um, these police are not trained properly.
Yeah.
And I think for the state police in New Jersey, they have to go through their physical PT test every year, which
I
I
think
think is,
that's a must.
I don't think it's like a lot of stuff. I think it's like a run. I'm not sure what it is, a mile and a half. And then it's like push up, sit up, something like
Yeah.
that. But at least they got a test coming up.
Yeah. It's something that they should have to do every year. It's just you're cops, you're soldiers, you're out on the front line, not from me, but just to keep from dying.
Do it
You
for
have
yourself, man.
right.
I always think if I was in law enforcement, there's always that like voice in my head of like, who am I going to run into
Yep.
today?
Yep.
Where might things go south? And how
Yeah.
can I best be ready?
Yeah.
And I'm shocked to see cops who look like they don't train, they don't lift, they can't, I'm always shocked, So my good friend who I was telling you, we trained together, he's a detective. He's been a cop for like 12, 13 years. And he pushed to get a weight room set up like in a pole barn outside of their headquarters. So they're
Yeah.
training. You got to train. And then my other buddy, he's a cop. He owns a wrestling club. He teaches the self defense in the corrections, but I think it's got to be ongoing, And I do
Yeah.
hear of a lot of cops and troopers going to jujitsu and Muay Thai, but it's not enough of them because
Yeah.
when I pass by cops, many of them don't look like they are fit.
Yeah. I got my TSAC facilitator from
Oh yeah,
NSCA,
yep.
and I was a corrections officer for 19 years.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, before I opened the gym, and
Dude, that is a rough gig.
it's a rough gig. You're in jail. I mean, you get to go home at night, but I would like to see in the future every police department have a strength and conditioning professional on hand and have it as part of their training, weekly. You
You
have to,
have to
let's say
do
you have to go 2 days
you
a week
gotta
and
yeah,
do
you'd have to
jujitsu.
word it. Matt Wenning did it correctly. He called it wellness. He didn't
Yes.
say strength. He
Yep.
called it wellness. So actually I rewrote they didn't have it, but I added strength and conditioning to our curriculum at this high school for all 4 years. I didn't call it strength and conditioning. I called it personal health and wellness, then advanced, personalized fitness. I
Yeah.
used words that don't intimidate the decision makers, the
Yeah.
administration. So when we go in, we're going to do our work. We're going to do our carries, our kettlebells, our hill sprints. But I knew that if I made it strength and conditioning and just focused on athletes, it would scare them away. What
Yeah.
Matt Wenning did with the fire departments was he called it a wellness program and focused on lowering insurance premiums because
Right.
guys were getting injured and then they'd have to get surgeries. And some guys, as you know, in law enforcement, they get surgeries even though they don't need it. They
Yeah.
just want to get off the job.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I was at a birthday party for my son. It must have been like, now he's almost 13. It must have been like 4 years ago. And a guy asked me, what do I do? Or he was telling me that he used to be a fireman, but he had to get, a back surgery. Then he asked me what I do. And I'm like, oh, I own own a gym. I train athletes. He's like, oh, is that something I could do? And I'm thinking to myself, well, you want to come and do that, but you can't go to work.
Yeah.
You're collecting your whatever by never, you're claiming disability. I've seen cops get a good buddy of mine. We grew up together. One of his buddies, got like a shoulder surgery and was out for like 18 months.
Yeah.
He didn't need a shoulder surgery. The guy doesn't work out, nothing, but he got a shoulder surgery and just, oh, my shoulder's bothering me.
Yeah. I mean,
And
how
yeah,
big of a deal was it for you to go get your surgeries? I mean, I'm sure you were at the end of your rope. You
dude,
tried everything.
my knee started bothering me when I was driving to Lehigh. So we're talking the fall of 2014.
Yeah.
I'd say about 2 to 3 years ago, it really started bothering me. And then to the point where I was struggling to fall asleep. Finally, my wife says to me, "Do you take an Advil?" I'm like, "I haven't taken an Advil in 3
Right.
years."
I'm the
She's
same
like,
way.
she's like, "You should take an Advil for this knee pain. You're all over the place, twisting and turning at night." I couldn't run. So I went with every alternative. We did Orthovisc, which is like a gel shot. You get 3 of them, 1 a week, zero improvement. I actually think I got worse. Then we did PRP, which, insurance does not cover. I can't
Yep.
remember what that cost me, $800 maybe. Nothing, zero improvement. I got a, what's the shot where to like get rid of the pain, the steroid shot, cortisol.
Oh, cortisol. Right. Yeah.
The doctor said I like to do a cortisol shot before the PRP to, just to kind of see what kind of like effect we're going to get. He said usually a cortisol shot will, minimize and inhibit the pain for 6 months. Dude, I was like somewhat pain free for 6 days.
Yeah.
It was killing me. So finally, we get an MRI with the contrast. It shows a tear to the meniscus. He goes, when I go in, then I'll really know what I could fix. This was my 4th knee surgery. They repaired the full so they stitched the meniscus, so full repair. Then my calf and foot are killing me after surgery, and I'm thinking, oh, it's not being worked. I'm off my foot for 6 weeks. Then I got a blood clot, so I had to go to the emergency room. I'm out of work. So I did my surgery over spring break thinking I might be back on my feet. I've been scoped before, and I'm back on my feet pretty quickly. So this was hard. And then I'm coming to work on crutches for like 5 weeks. I'm only now starting to feel semi-normal. I got to go in like 4 minutes, Mark. But
Yeah. We'll wrap it up.
it was hard, and I was going to do it in the summer. But then my wife's like, why don't you just do it over spring break? Because then you'll be recovered by summer and you might be off crutches. Because the doctor said, I don't know if I could repair it till I go in. So I'm repaired. My pain is not what it was. There's still some pain. And I think the awkwardness is from my ankle and foot looked like elephantitis from the blood clot.
Yeah.
So
I've had those. Yeah.
I'm on medication for that. But I've been using the old school Stairmaster here at my school. I've been doing like iso holds on the lunge, leg curls. So my range of motion is coming back. My strength is nothing what it used to be, but I'm gonna get it there. I'm moving almost every day. I could ride my bike. So there's a lot of pluses going on, and I'm finally almost walking pretty much normal.
Awesome.
I'm like 95% there. So yeah, man, to get a surgery was very hard. I think if I was coaching at the Division I level, you're constantly putting your health off. When are these kids off? When are they off?
Yep.
And look, wrestling is not like these other teams. They're like, well, yeah, it's optional, so they don't have to come in. When I was at Rutgers, yeah, it was optional, but here's when we're training.
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m., boom.
Yeah.
Or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. So it was quote unquote optional, but your best guys were showing up. I was training a full team.
Your option is to show up and get better.
That's right, dude. Yeah. So,
hey,
what do we got? One last question?
No, we'll wrap it up and get you out of here. And we'll do this again, I'm sure, because I love talking to you, brother.
Love chatting with you. Yeah. And where are you, in Columbus?
Cleveland, just outside of Cleveland.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So, man, if I got to head out that way, we'll make sure we connect for sure.
Yeah, we'll grab you and me, and I'll grab Evan Marcus, and we'll
man. He texted me this morning.
Hang out. All right, brother. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you doing this, and we'll do it again soon.
Talk to you later, Mark. Thanks.
All right, brother.
Buddy.
See ya.
Bye, buddy. Bye.